In the heart of a bustling city, in a slum where the streets were narrow and the air thick with despair, a little white dog named Zoren ran for her life. Hungry, weak, and terrified, she darted between trash piles and broken fences, trying to escape her drunken owner. The man, staggering with a stick in hand, shouted and chased her, determined to beat the poor puppy for no reason other than his own misery. Using every ounce of strength she had left, Zoren escaped and found herself in a nearby park. There, she saw a happy family laughing and playing with their healthy, well-fed puppy. They showered their dog with affection and treats. Driven by hunger, Zoren timidly approached them, hoping for a scrap of food or a kind gesture. But instead, they threw stones at her and yelled, "Go away!" Exhausted and weak, she spotted an open mailbox in front of an old house. With her energy fading fast, Zoren climbed inside, curled up, and fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, the house's owner, an elderly woman named Mrs. Luna, stepped outside to check the mailbox as she did every day. Mrs. Luna had been waiting for a letter from her husband, who had been deployed as a soldier to Hawaii in 1941. As she opened the mailbox, Zoren, startled, leapt out and fell to the ground. "Oh my God, my heart!" Mrs. Luna screamed, clutching her chest in shock. She quickly noticed the little dog, skinny and sick, lying at her feet. Before she could react further, the postman arrived. "Good morning, Mrs. Luna. A letter from your husband," he said, handing over an envelope before riding off on his bike. Mrs. Luna went inside the house, brewed her coffee, and sat by the window to read her husband's letter. "Dear Luna, it's been 3 years now, and though the war keeps us apart, I promise I will come home to you. Always remember I love you, and I'll see you soon." As Luna read the familiar words, she smiled, her heart swelling with love. She stepped into her garden, tending to her roses when suddenly she heard a faint whimpering. Following the sound, she found Zoren back inside her mailbox, weak and trembling. "Help me, please," the dog seemed to cry. Something in Luna's heart shifted. She scooped Zoren up, brought her inside, gently bathed the little dog, wrapped her in a warm blanket, and set her by the fireplace. For the first time in years, Luna didn't feel so alone. Zoren slowly regained her strength. As Luna went to the church, the little dog waited for her, greeting her at the door every evening. People in town noticed that Luna, who had been a loner since her husband's deployment, now had a constant companion. She even began taking Zoren with her on Sunday trips to the market and church. Neighbors whispered, "Mrs. Luna is always smiling now." One quiet night as they slept, a thief broke into the house. Zoren woke immediately, barking and lunging at the intruder. Startled, the thief fled into the night. From that day on, Luna felt safe and grateful, her bond with Zoren growing deeper. They were inseparable, and each morning Zoren would fetch the mail, proudly delivering letters from the postman to Luna. But one sunny afternoon, as Luna and Zoren sat in the park, they heard a familiar voice behind the trees. It was the postman, speaking aloud as he wrote a letter. "Dear my beloved Luna, I hope to see you soon. I long to hold you once again." Luna's heart raced. She rushed over to him, her voice trembling. "Why are you writing my husband's letters?" she demanded, tears welling up. The postman, lowering his head, said softly, "Mom, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make you happy." Mrs. Luna, who had Alzheimer's, believed that her husband was still alive, not knowing that he had lost his life in Hawaii during the Pearl Harbor bombing. She clung to her memories, and her son, the postman, had been writing those letters to comfort her. One day, as Mrs. Luna and Zoren were having dinner, the sound of a police siren filled the air. A knock at the door followed. The police stood there with Zoren's original owner. "Mrs. Luna, I'm sorry, but we have to return the dog to its owner," one of the officers said gently. The owner dragged Zoren away while the little dog cried out for help. Mrs. Luna broke down in tears, devastated. It was a heartbreaking moment for both of them. That night, Mrs. Luna sat in sadness, and Zoren, in her new home, cried as well.
Sa huling gabi ng ating pagkikita, bukas pagsikat ng araw, alam ko na aalis ka. Sino ako para pigilan ka? Kung alam ko na naghihintay siya. Hindi ako naghahanap ng suklian mo ng pagmamahal. Kailanman matitiis kung ako ay iwanan. Basta ikaw ay masaya sa piling niya. Ngunit hayaan mong yakapin ka at pagmasdan ang iyong mga mata. At kung marapatin ay isayaw kita sa saliw ng awit na likha mo sinta.
But the next morning, the postman arrived at his mother's house, holding Zoren in his arms. "Mom, I bought Zoren from the owner. I want you to have her back so you can be happy again." From that day on, Mrs. Luna, Zoren, and her son, the postman, lived happily together, their little family complete.